building out a company, there is probably 1,000 reasons you would just lose sleep over. But the best thing to do is to get a good night's sleep, because they're all still going to be there tomorrow and they're going to need your full energy.
Here we go. Welcome to Tough Talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Tough Talk. Um, it's where we have the opportunity to ask really smart people tough questions
Yeah. There you
um,
go.
about career growth, about running a business, about funding a business, about personal growth. And couldn't be more excited that you're sharing 20 minutes with us. So I'm gonna kick things off with our first question. You've been the founder and CEO of Better Leap for the last 2 years, but you're also an active investor. Do you feel like you have to change hats in those roles? Like, do you think that there's a lot of overlap between being an investor and a CEO, or do you carve out separate time for each of those roles?
Yeah. Great question. It's true, you're starting with the tough ones.
Just the beginning.
I don't know if I'm smart enough to answer those questions, but
I don't believe that.
on no, but really I remember a long time ago I saw a tweet from Naval from AngelList, and he was tweeting that the entrepreneurship and investors is kind of a career path. Typically, you find a lot of entrepreneurs, they are passionate about a problem, they go and they build it out, and then they eventually, if they had a really good exit, or as they create liquidity events for themselves, and they start kind of supporting the next generation of founders. And that was kind of his insight into AngelList, and how he started to help bringing in that next generation of investors to invest in the to be entrepreneurs. And I've always thought of it as they're two sides of the same coin. That one big reason why I as an angel investor do a lot of actively investing is, one is to connect with great founders and support them in their journey, because I've been very fortunate and I was in their position one day, and I appreciated all the help I was able to get. But also through that, it just makes me an even better entrepreneur, expanding the network and learning about the new technologies and industries, and connecting with all these entrepreneurs and everything that they're building. So in many ways, I think of it as two sides of the same coin, not necessarily, in the day to day, in terms of my calendar. Yeah, the details of the meetings look very different, but very much supports themselves.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that. So, one of the questions that we had was around you get to meet and invest in a lot of different companies. And one of the things we're curious about is kind of like what your criteria is. But you just mentioned one thing, like you feel fortunate to work with and support great founders. What makes a great founder from your perspective?
Yeah, it really starts with their drive. I mean, I think that the best advice, as cliche as it sounds, it still is the best advice in investing in early stage, like super, seed or pre-seed, which is invest in the people. And so you're always kind of looking for traits and characteristics that would make them a really good founder. Do they understand the space? Do they, you try to find you try to understand how do they think about the problem space, and what are they trying to do here? What's their relation to that problem space? Would they be the ones that you would want to work for them? If they were to hire you, would you want to work for that individual or not? As a proxy, would they be able to hire a great team that helps them to accomplish that mission? One of my favorite quotes of Jeff Bezos is, be very stubborn on the mission, but very flexible in how to get there. And it's very easy to find a lot of really stubborn founders, but it takes a skill to find whether or not they're flexible in how to get there. And so, I try to probe for that as well, because I yet to see a founder story where I was set to do this. A year later, I accomplished this. It worked. It's never a straight path. So, I try to find individuals that have the resilience to go through that as well.
I want to build on two things, but the first is one of, I mean, I feel like you set that example with Better Leap. So, one of the reasons that we like working with you and the team is we feel like you set an amazing example of getting out there and then tweaking along the way versus the mentality of it has to be perfect, it has to be final, like it has to be all buttoned up. Why do you think it's so important to take that kind of like adapt as you go and that flexible approach to growth?
Yeah, well, especially for Better Leap, because Better Leap was built in the recruiting industry and the company started before the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit and we've seen all these massive layoffs, essentially the entire landscape of HR tech has changed. And in
Mhm.
many ways, it's kind of like overnight from, uh, recruiters and you have a long tail of these recruiters and people that are just really happy where they are to all of a sudden, all of them are laid off to a few months later, companies can't even find them anymore. Find enough recruiters and salaries have doubled for them and like the entire landscape has changed completely. So if anything, this is a great example of you gotta have the right team that adapts and be very flexible with where they are. When we started Better Leap, we started with we still have the same mission. We want to help grow companies, and companies need talent, and we want to help companies streamline their recruiting process and find the right talent. Our approach on how to go about it, though, has changed dramatically from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic to now. We're helping and empowering the long tail of independent recruiters to be more successful and work with the right companies to help them grow. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
so yeah, if anything, I would say we're very, to your question, the recruiting industry is just the right one to show how you have to be very adaptive as an entrepreneur and resilient to market changes.
Mhm, mhm. And the other thing I want to expand on is you talked about this idea around drive in terms of kind of like when you assess companies or think about investment or chat with founders, kind of understanding drive. I read on LinkedIn somebody had said this direct quote about you. Um, he has a great attitude and his ambition is infectious. And I think ambition and drive feel very similar. And I'm curious, is there any like, is there anything from your early childhood? Is there anything about your earlier businesses like Tilt acquired by Airbnb? Is there anything like, did you just come out with drive? Did you just come out with ambition or did certain experiences shape that?
Um, I think I have to tell you a backdrop story for this. And I love this kind of conversation because it really anyway, so let me tell you. So I grew up in Egypt.
Mhm.
My parents, they were entrepreneurs, both of them. So it's kind of, yeah, grew up in that family. My grandfather was an entrepreneur as well. So we always had the mindset of sort of control your destiny in a way. Like, you gotta find opportunities and, that early days hustle. And I remember when I was very young, like maybe 6, maybe 7 years old, at around that time, and I was just infatuated by this idea of Silicon Valley. I didn't even know where the Silicon Valley is, but I was fascinated by, Bill Gates, and there was a whole bunch of like, movies around that time for this, and I was like, oh my God, it would be a dream for me to come to the Silicon Valley. And fast forward, I made it here through Tilt, and I came to school in Virginia Tech and joined the company, IPO. It was really great, and then I built Tilt, and I just couldn't believe that that was even possible. Like really, for many years, even I had this imposter syndrome where I felt
Mm.
like I don't really belong here. These people are smart. These people are changing the world. That's incredible. And um, and then I just got to the realization of like, hey, we're all human beings and we're all figuring it out and learning as we go. And that was really, I feel very fortunate that that was one of my personality traits, that I'm just like very flexible and resilient to these things. And the result of that was that I'm just shooting for the stars. I'm really very excited about taking on big problems and see how far we can go with them. And the key to that is having the right team and the right people. Hence, better leap again. It all comes back to like how do we get the right people together and give them an incredible mission and just trust that they can figure it out. That's it. And human beings always surprise in doing so.
I mean, I can't relate with that enough. Being in a service-based industry, 25 people on my team, in the early days, it was really scary. And then you understand if you get the right people in the room, challenges, even if you don't need to have the answer, you just need to have the right people and the right perspectives and diverse ones at that. And then all of a sudden, what is sometimes intimidating as a founder or a business owner, which is often the unknown, or is this the right decision, or should we do this? You can tackle those with such ease because you're surrounded by a team of incredible people who prove over and over again that you'll figure it out. And there's a lot of comfort to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting. I like that you say kind of like your family's perspective was like you create your own destiny. I feel like there's a lot of self-reliance in that, and I find a lot of founders have this really kind of deep self-reliance, and that feels similar. But speaking of team and talent, when you're building teams for your businesses, it sounds like flexibility maybe is a trait that you look for. But like when you're hiring an in-house team, what are the characteristics that are most important for those people when they're working at early stage startups?
Yeah, I think a lot of the elements of what makes a really good entrepreneur and good founder is kind of the elements you need to look for in that early team, because they will go through all the ups and downs of figuring out, getting to product market fit, of the ups and downs of fundraising, the ups and downs of the customers and the build out of the product and all that kind of stuff. So it's very important to kind of really filter for that resilience and no drama. I think it's really critical to avoid these things in the company culture. But generally, I look for people that when they join, they want to join because of at least one of these three things. You either join because of the mission, and you just infatuated by this mission, and I want to make this happen, and we help grow companies, and I want people that are just so passionate about growing companies. I remember one of our first customers joined Better Leap, and they were a team of 23 or something, and then they ended the year with over 200, and the company's over $1 billion. We were like,
holy
oh my God, this is amazing. Like we were part of this story, and that's incredible. And I want people to just want to be part of that story. So you either join because of the mission, or you join because of the product. And so usually what happens too is, especially on, sometimes consumer products, you're using a product every day and you're like, I kind of wish I want to change that thing in a product, or I really think this company should do 1, 2, 3, and you want to just join for them to make that, and then you can figure out what your next step is. So you either want to join because of the mission or the product, and the third is the people. And ideally, I try to find people that want to connect, that want to join us because of all three. But in general, my even advice for candidates when they're looking for jobs is try to at least connect with one of those three. Ideally, or all three components. Look for people that no drama. They question the status quo, because what got us here is not what going to get us there. So yeah.
It seems like a simple framework to keep in mind: mission, people, product.
Yep, exactly.
My last question is the toughest.
All right.
I dropped into the tough Slack channel before I jumped on it. I said, all right, what should I ask Better Leap? And here's what they wanted to know. Does your face hurt from smiling continuously? Do you smile in your sleep? And I want to know, it seems like, running a business, to your point, it takes a lot of resilience. There's so many ups and downs. Sometimes it feels like you're kind of just getting punched in the face all the time. And there's lots of highs and lows. And it seems like, at least in my team's working relationship with you, you can continue to show up with a positive attitude, regardless of the challenges and what sometimes are long hours. How do you do that?
That is the toughest question.
I know.
I know. Well, first of all, thank you, and thanks for the whole team for the question and noticing this. I I used to actually get like overly stressed over this, and I guess this is maybe part of kind of growing into the role of being an entrepreneur and investor, right? Like there's a level of experience that you kind of gain over the years. Um, and and then what I realized is, and there was this quote that we used to tell our teams also in other companies is, there is building out a company, there is probably 1,000 reasons you would just lose sleep over. But the best thing to do is to get a good night's sleep, because they're all still going to be there tomorrow and they're going to need your full energy. And then what I realized is you have to think through what's in our control and what's not. And actually, most of the time, founders and teams, they get stressed over things that are not in their control. And the reality is it's not in your control, and your attitude towards it will not change that either. It's your attitude towards what you can control. And I realized our quality of decisions, our quality of work is just so much better when we go at it from kind of a positive mindset, that at the end of the day, things, and somehow I wish I understood this when I was younger, but somehow things work out. You know what I mean? It's
Or
like
you work really hard and they work out,
you tell this to an 18-year-old and you're like, yeah, right. Or you know what I mean? And you kind of want to go through walls, but somehow things eventually work out. And it goes back to finding the right team. And also they pull their energy and their culture and their motivation from the founders. And so I think we have a responsibility as founders to also be very mindful of that. Like, how do we present ourselves? How do we, what kind of mindset and what kind of attitude we bring it into the company? That sets the stage. When there are fires outside the door and you're walking in and we're gonna figure this out, the team figures it out. But when you walk in panicking, the team panics, and you're not going to make a good decision in like a full panic mode. So yeah, and also I can't emphasize this enough. I've been very fortunate. There is so many things outside my control that ended up being very fortunate, very lucky for me that it just worked. So it helps keeping that smile.
And we're glad it worked at Tough, because being part of Better Leap's growth and getting to collaborate with you weekly is definitely a highlight. So want to say a big thank you to you and the team, and thanks for jumping on to chat with me.
Of course, and thank you for helping us. I remember when we connected, I really I was thinking to my co-founder, I was like, hey, it would be great to get those guys to work with us. I'm very excited about them, and I think a big factor for our success is all the work that y'all have been doing to Better Leap, and looking forward to continue that.
Same. Well, thank you so much for the time. It was great catching up.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Bye.